Hey everyone, Jim Fitzpatrick. Welcome into another edition of CBT Now here on the CBT Automotive Network. We have got with us Mr. Pete MacInnis. I know that you know this gentleman, especially if you tune into CBT News or you're anywhere in automotive, then you've seen him speak before. And he's the CEO of eLend Solutions. And Pete's published a series of articles for us here at cbtnews.com over the past 4 months on the topic of auto finance. So thank you so much, Pete, for taking the time out of your busy schedule to join us on the show.
Oh, thanks for having me, Jim.
Sure. So talk to us about the premise behind the articles that you've provided us with. Obviously we're going to touch on a number of different topics today, affordability and payments and things, but talk to us about the impetus behind some of those articles that you've written.
Yeah, well, when you think about around those articles, I was looking at the landscape and what's been going on most recently. And when I look back over time and having spent over 40 years in the auto finance space, kind of half of it on the lender side and the other half on the dealer side. And I looking at what's going on and some of the changes in the marketplace, and just thought it would be probably good to dive in a little bit and look at that kind of where we were around auto finance. Over 20 years ago, Dealertrack and RouteOne replaced fax machines, with their credit application portals. Yeah. Thinking about that, there hasn't been anything really major, positively disruptive in auto finance since then. That was a really big deal. And that's been, well over 20 years. Yeah. So, we've had so much happening over the past few years in terms of the marketplace. When we think about, during the COVID shutdown, that's when digital retailing really started to accelerate and take off. And, we're looking at companies like Vroom and, they were spending millions telling the market that if consumers had a finger in a phone, the car would magically appear in their driveway.
That's right.
And then, that was followed up by a frenzy of digital retailing companies trying to convince the market that customers wanted to buy cars from home and never go to a dealership again.
I know.
And so, in addition to they overpromised and they underdelivered, because, they really didn't understand the complexity of the sale, particularly around financing part of the transaction.
That's right.
They were throwing around terms like penny perfect payments, which is misleading at best. That phrase really had nothing to do with customer qualifications. So with all of that hype going on, we thought, what do dealers really think? What do lenders really think?
Sure.
So we started a series of surveys, to the dealer market, to the lender market, and say, look, we want your input. We want to know what you think about those things. So we would ask questions like, okay, so dealers, what does penny perfect payments mean to you? Yeah. And so 57% of the dealers responded that penny perfect payments meant jurisdictional tax license registration fees. Yeah. And the remaining 43% said, well, it was all of that plus tying to an actual customer qualified payment to a specific lender. And so that was really disconnected from what, the digital retailing companies were peddling, letting consumers desk their own deals. Yeah, that's right. Think about how funny that is, right? Yeah. And, so we decided to do a lot of those dealer surveys around customer expectations, what kind of dealer tools the dealers were using, what was the impact of those tools, and then what was ultimately the disconnect between sales and finance. And
so with the average price of a new car of $50,000 and the average payment being over $700 a month, affordability has got to be at the top of everybody's mind, both the consumers and the dealers that you're dealing with, right?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. So, Jim, what I'm going to do for the audience here is a lot of my answers are going to be very tied back to these actual survey results, because they're very telling, and we appreciate the forum to allow basically dealers to see what other dealers are thinking about this and really have a reality check in the marketplace. So when you talk about that, one of the questions we asked dealers was about payments, and they said 68% of the dealers said that the payment is more or equally as important as the sales price of the car.
Yeah, that makes sense.
So, right?
Yep.
With affordability today, and 93% of the dealers said that consumers want to know their monthly payments up front at the beginning of the journey And surprisingly, 85% of the dealers want to quote payments early. So, but it comes down to it. Consumers want to do more of the sales and finance process remotely, saving time at the dealership. And they want to know that what they're quoted online actually matches when they get to the dealership.
Right. Yeah, for sure. I mean, we all live in that Amazon world, right? That we're counting on if we buy something that it's going to be that when we show up, right? And in this case, at the dealership.
Yep.
Yeah, no question.
Absolutely.
No question about it. So, talk to us about what the responding or the dealers responding to the customer's expectations are on finance terms up front. You touched on it a little bit, but drill down on that, because it seems to me, I think you said 85% of dealers are saying, yeah, that's okay to give them finance terms up front.
Yeah, they're wanting it. So they're like, hey, customers want it, so let's find a way to give it to them.
Yeah.
So we
as you know, traditionally for so long, they were like, oh my God, don't do that to the last possible step.
Right. That's what I said when it was surprising, because, there was always this fear of, the vehicle. First, it was getting the transparency about the vehicle and being shopped for that, right? Then it became an issue. Oh my God, now they're going to shop us for the finance, important part of our profitability. So it was very surprising to see that dealers are being responsive to that and wanting to do that, and knowing that if they do it correctly, they can still maintain and build in their profitability in that factor. So, but what happened was, 67% of dealers reported that they do provide online payment calculators for their customers on their website, on their digital retailing tools. And then, so what was interesting, and then we had asked like a sub question to that and say, oh, really? Okay. Well, then we asked the questions about, well, how is that payment being calculated? And 64% of the dealers said that the payment was based on the customer's own provided estimated credit score. When you think about that, it's like, well, the customers tell what it is, not what it really is.
Yeah, right.
And then more importantly, is that really related to the actual finance terms they're going to get anyways? So the result of that was over half of the dealers surveyed said that monthly payment quote can be within $50 of the monthly finance contract, right? So that's like $3,600 over a 72-month loan term,
So one of the reasons I wanted to have you on is that I hear eLend Solutions is about to launch a fintech platform named Dealmaker that solves a lot of these problems that we talked about today. Can you kind of give us the story on this and what this looks like?
Well, sure. One of the things, and we asked the marketplace, when we talk about this, the lender's piece is disconnected from the customer's buying journey. And we asked both dealers and lenders, and 94% of them together said that they think that a pre-desking technology integrated with these lenders' proprietary scorecard models, it would improve the whole car buying process for all parties concerned. So from a premise standpoint, the market's saying, yes, there is a need for this. It needs to happen.
Yeah.
And from our perspective, Jim, one of the reasons when we do all these dealer surveys, it's one, to have our finger on the pulse of the market, getting away from the noise, what's really going on, what do dealers really think, what the lenders really think. And it really gives us some guidance in making sure that the technologies that we're building are what they need, what they want. So yeah, our Dealmaker really is solving a lot of those problems that we're talking about. And we'll be looking to finally, after years of development, piloting that this summer. We've got some high-profile dealers that are looking to be our initial pilots on it.
Nice.
And it really does address that. And we think that it really is, when we go back to talking about the last major thing that happened was Dealertrack and RouteOne eliminating fax machines. We think that now this next generation of auto finance is really about bringing all of that lenders back into the front of the sales process. Sales and finances together. It integrates both. It addresses customer expectations, and it removes those bottlenecks and those disconnects and those profit leaks for both dealers and lenders. So we're really looking to do that, and we think it's also something that requires them. It's a big deal, and it requires a lot of collaboration with a lot of the major players in the marketplace.
Wow, huge undertaking.
Yeah, right.
That's fantastic. That's just what the industry needs. I'd love to bring you back on to talk more about that. Maybe even with one of the dealers that's in the test.
Sure, Jim, that would be fantastic.
Yeah.
We would love to do that. So
Yeah,
maybe later this summer, we
that
should
would
be
be
able
great.
to,
I'd love it.
engage with that. Yeah, thank you.
For those that are listening to us, if you haven't had an opportunity to read the articles that Pete has published here at CBT News, I really encourage you to do that. So it gives you great data in here and great insights by Pete and his team. So all you got to do is go to cbtnews.com. In the search bar, just put in Pete MacInnis, and you'll get everything that he has published on our website. It's really good stuff. It's an easy read. I'd highly recommend that you do just that. This is not just for F&I directors and sales managers, but also for GMs and dealers to know what's going on and where this industry is headed. Pete's always on the forefront of it. So Pete MacInnis, CEO of eLend Solutions. I'm going to underline solutions there because you're always coming up with them, one of them ones we just talked about. But thank you so much for your insights. Thanks for all your contribution to CBT News. We appreciate it. And hopefully we can reconnect back here in a couple of weeks or a few weeks, maybe a month or so, and you can tell us more about the new program.
Thanks, Jim. Thanks for the microphone.
Awesome. Thanks so much.